Hello, welcome to Hearts of Iron tutorial for complete beginners, as well as a playthrough walkthrough where we're going to take all beginning players up to speed with this game and conquer Europe while we're at it. And it is the 2024 version, so it includes all the updates. We're of course playing without DLC. This is part 4. Do check the description out if this is the first time you're seeing this series of videos. You'll probably do well to start with part number 1. In part 4 today, we're going to take a little look at setting up the very basics of a navy in the early stages, i.e. the pre-war stages, playing as Germany. And then we'll also look at evolving some of the other decisions. So, if you haven't already, go ahead and load up your save game if you're trying to follow along. If you're just watching the tutorial, welcome to it. And zooming in from where we left off last time, we'd got everything underway and squared away insofar as notifications go. And you can see there we got the game up to the 31st of January, 1936. So the first thing we're going to do before we unpause this time, we're going to slow the game right down by pressing minus until we have just that one green bar over there in the corner. If you remember, the only controls you need in this game are F1, F2 and F3. Coming back to F2 for this one, we're going to look at the Navy. Now, when you start off as Germany, you start off with 2 flotillas. If you can see those at the bottom there, that's flotilla number 1 and flotilla number 2. These are nicely split up between. You've got your surface ships here that they call the Kriegsmarine. And over here we've got the Unterseebootflotte, which is, I think, U-boats to everybody else, including, I think, Germans call them U-boats as well. But in any case, let's come over to the left one, the Kriegsmarine. What we're going to do is assign a Admiral, which is, of course, the Navy equivalent of a General. Now, top guy is clearly Karl Dönitz, but here's the U-boat guy. So look at that bonus for submarine attack. Submarine attack plus 20% just by having this guy in charge. So obviously hugely important. I'm going to go with Erich Raeder, who was, of course, the admiral of the fleet. He was in charge of or responsible for the entire navy as a whole during the war. So what we'll do is we'll get Raeder on the case. He's going to be in charge of this particular flotilla. And remember, the flotilla is a group of ships in much the same way a squadron is a group of aircraft, or a division or a battalion is a group of soldiers, right? So we've got him selected. Now, we haven't yet given him an order, but, at least he's hired there. We're now going to come across to our U-boat fleet. As we're going to come over, assign the commander, and of course pick Karl Dönitz. Now his flotilla is much smaller. You can see Karl Dönitz currently controls 2 flotillas. This group over here and this group comprises currently of 8 U-boats, and he's got another flotilla over here which currently just comprises of 6. There's something to be said about how big you make a flotilla, and I'm trying to think the easiest way to explain this would be to say 8 submarines or 8 U-boats is better than 6, obviously, because not only can 8 U-boats put out more damage when they're attacking, and they will generally work together for the attack, kind of like as a wolf pack, if you like. But when they start receiving damage, if they do receive damage, and, they will, to lose 1 U-boat and go from 8 U-boats to 7 is not as bad as, say, if you only had 2 U-boats and then you went from 2 down to 1. One of them you're talking like a 15% loss of strength. In the other example, you're talking like half of your U-boat strength has gone if you go from 2 to 1. So you may say, oh, well, the answer's easy then. Just make your U-boat flotillas bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they'll just be forever stronger. The answer is yes, they would, except you could only cover a small area. You know, if you literally put all your boats together, you're only ever going to be able to cover that small area where they are at the time at the expense of everything else. So it's a balancing act between how much area do you want to cover versus how strong do you want that coverage to be. Kind of like a front line with the army. You know, you can have a very, very thin line and have it very, very long. Or you can put everybody on one part of the front line, which is best. Well, it's sort of trying to find the best of both worlds. So I think we'll go with the U-boat guy first, the U-boat fleet. So if we select him by himself, it's going to select everybody that's under him. I'm going to click on these icons here. This is automatic reinforcement, this one here. What this says is, hang on, you've got, in this case, let's just take this flotilla here. You've got 8 U-boats. Now, let's say one of them is killed while on action. We now only have 7. Well, the standard way that this game works, and to me, I don't see the point of it, but it's the standard way, is the game says, okay, well, your flotilla did have 8. It's now got 7. End of story. That's it. You play the rest of the game just using 7 U-boats. If, however, we enable this, which is what we're going to do, we get this little green light that says it's enabled. Now, when we lose a U-boat and we've only got 7 left, it's going to say, yeah, but hang on a minute, I need 8. That's what we've been authorized, 8 U-boats. And when the next U-boat rolls off the dockyard, it will be sent out and automatically reinforce the flotilla. I just think that's the best way to play. The next option along, which is hugely important, is automatic split off. And you can see default is disabled. What that does is say, right, us lot are doing whatever, whether we're on mission, whether we're training, whatever it is, and I've become damaged. You know, I accidentally crashed into somebody, I've run aground, I've been depth charged, whatever the problem is, and I'm damaged. Unless they receive the knockout blow, and obviously they're dead, that's it. But if they're just damaged, they will break off if we enable this, and they will actually leave the rest of the flotilla. They will go home. They will get repaired, and once they're repaired, they'll come back out and rejoin the rest of the group. In my opinion, that's almost always the way to play. There are some exceptions where you want your flotilla to stay together, and what will happen is if 1 or 2 of them get heavily damaged, the whole lot will go home together. They obviously then provide better protection for each other when they're doing that. So it's a case of, how far are you away from home? How many enemies are there around? You know, how dangerous is the waters, as to whether you think, no, it's best that we keep the presence there, just let 1 or 2 of them come back to be repaired, or no, it's best that they all stay together. There is not an option, unfortunately, for, well, what we'll do is the damaged ship can come home and we'll send another destroyer out to escort it back. There, unfortunately, is not an option like that. So it's an all or nothing. Do you send them back as and when, or do the whole lot come back as and when? So I'm going to enable that option, which basically means this ship's damaged, it comes home, but the rest of them carry on doing what they're doing. Okay, so with that configuration set, the next option along here is repair priority. Default is high, and I want to leave that there. So what this says is, if a ship is damaged, and actually it needs to be damaged by about halfway, which I think is a lot of damage before the ship even begins thinking about coming home. And that's apparently the highest priority. And again, you can cycle that between never repair, low, middle, and high. So I'm going to leave it on high as default. And so when the ship is basically halfway damaged, it will split off, come home, get repaired, and then go back. The final option here is when it comes to engaging the enemy, the default is always medium risk. So in other words, it always seems... Hiya, sweetheart. The cat's come to say hello to us again. It also may... I always find this a bit weird because ordinarily, you know, when you're thinking like a commander in military, you normally attack when you know or you're confident that you could win. if you're thinking, oh, well, it could be 50-50, I'm not really sure. Generally speaking, that's not the normal way that you do battle. But this option lets you cycle through. So medium risk, I guess, is 50-50. You've got engage at high risk. So even though you don't think you can win, you're still going to go for it. You've then got the option to always engage, which is no matter the odds, you're going to go for it. Like, I don't see why you would ever have this option. It just seems like a sure way to ensure that you lose. The next option along goes to the other extreme, which is to never engage. The only time I would recommend using this option is if you're placing, and I don't even think it's included in the vanilla version of the game, but basically, if you're using a destroyer to lay minefields, you might not want that destroyer to engage a target, just lay its minefields. And so by having the do not engage option, basically if it sees an enemy ship, it's only ever going to do one thing, and that is get out of dodge. The other option is engage at low risk. Now, personally, I find this is the best way, certainly when you're Germany, and certainly in the earlier stages of the war, to roll with a low engagement risk. And so what it's going to do is, if they think they can win, they're going to take the fight, and if they don't, they will steer clear. And the reason I think this is the best way to play as Germany is because your navy is very much second to the British Royal Navy. And the last thing you want to do is lose what few ships you have, which are the only things that basically you rely on to prevent against an all-out invasion. You don't want to lose them to battles against a vastly superior navy. And so the way I would suggest is go low risk until it starts to look like, yeah, we're sort of in control of the navy. We've won what we've won. Things have quietened down a little bit. We've got loads of ships. Then by all means, crank it up. So that's there. The next thing we're going to discuss is, okay, well, where do these subs operate? Well, it's a little bit different to controlling the army in that you have a certain type of order to give. So we've got the training, which is what we're going to have to do to begin with, naval exercises. We've then got regular patrol. We've got strike force. We'll take a look at some of these more closely when it comes to the floating navy. But a big one that you're going to be doing for subs is the convoy raiding option here. And so if we select this, and I'm just going to demonstrate, you see the first thing it says is no assigned regions. And that's because we've not told him, okay, convoy raiding, yes, but where? And the answer is could be anywhere, but we're going to say, well, each one of these water tiles or areas of the sea are where it can go. So let's say Eastern North Sea area is one area. So what I'm going to do is right click on this area of sea to say, okay, go there. And what he's going to do, if we was to unpause now, is he's literally going to take his 2 flotillas and they're going to patrol this area of the sea looking for enemy convoys to sink. Now, because we're not at war, he will never find an enemy convoy. He will find convoys, but not enemy convoys. So we'll never sink anything. But he will try. So there's that order there. Now, this is great for training, and we will switch over to training, but I just want to demonstrate that what we can do is then say, okay, we'll go here as well, and go here as well, and go here as well. So now what he's going to do, if he was to unpause, he's going to take his 2 flotillas, because he's only got 2, and he's going to split them up between these 4 sectors. And they're going to be trolling, looking for convoys. And again, he won't find any because we're not at war yet. But if we were to be at war with the British, guarantee you he's going to have his hands full pretty darn quick with a patrol order such as this. However, I only want him to train, and I don't want him to go all over the shop. So I'm going to say, okay, don't go here. So I'm actually going to hold down Shift, right-click again to remove these regions. So Shift, right-click. Shift, right click, shift, right click. I only want him to be in this particular region. And instead of convoy raiding, I'm going to set him to begin naval exercises. And again, if we click on one of these flotillas, we can see here, this icon right where my finger is shows that it's a novice. As you can see there, experience level 1, fresh, they're untrained. So if we take a look at here, naval damage minus 10%. So this is a negative modifier. This is a red modifier. This is bad. Naval defense minus 10%. Makes sense, right? These people are untrained. They're not as good at doing what they're doing. They're going to be able to cause less damage. And when they take damage, they're going to be worse because they're not as good at... You know, if you were to watch the sub films, they get depth charged. There's always the same thing where one of the things breaks open and there's water that's flooding in through a pipe, and they always fix the boat the same way because there's just some nuts and bolts that all that they need to do is get the spanner on there and tighten it, and bingo, the leak is fixed. That's the simplification that films make. I'm going to rely on that same simplification and say, once you get these guys trained, they're a bit quicker at tightening that spanner when the leak starts. So that's what's happening there. Now, I got to say that I want these flotillas to have at least 10 subs in them, not 8, certainly not 6. So alongside the flotilla that's currently got 8, I'm going to press on this icon here, open the task force composition editor. This is that lets you design your flotilla. Now, in this case, a submarine flotilla is easy. We just want subs. So I'm just going to press on the plus here a couple of times and say, okay, I want there to be 10 subs, not 8. So when I press OK, you can see now we've authorized there to be 10 subs in this flotilla. And so as and when subs are produced, they're going to fulfill this requirement until he's got 10. I want the same for the other flotilla. So I'm going to left click here where there are the 6 training. I'm going to once again open the task force composition editor and again increase that to 10. Okay. And so now we need another 4 subs for this flotilla. We need another 2 for the other. And once that's complete, we'll have spare subs. We'll then think about creating new flotillas at that point. So I'm going to hit escape. We're now going to come over to the Kriegsmarine guy. So this is the guy who's in charge of the surface ship. And once again, doing the same thing, I'm just going to enable the first 2. So click to enable automatic reinforcement. Yes, so same again. If they sink one of the ships, rather than just saying, oh, well, that's it, tough luck, they're now going to say, okay, we're a ship short. When the next one comes out, we'll reinforce. And again, automatic split off. Same thing again. Okay. I'm going to leave the other stuff as is. Now, the German surface fleet, I don't recommend getting too aggressive with it too early in the game because, as we've said, the Royal Navy will kick your ass. Instead, what you want to do with these is use them very defensively. So if we come over here, we've got the same option of naval exercises. Obviously, we've got convoy raiding option here, but we also have patrol and strike force. Now, these are the 2 options you're going to use most of all when it comes to your surface fleet. The difference is strike force is the option that you're going to use 99% of the time, certainly when it comes to your big capital ships, your cruisers, your battleships. And what that says is you wait in harbour, you wait in port, because to steam around uses loads of fuel. Battleships guzzle an insane tonnage of fuel. I was looking at this the other day. I forgot what the numbers were now. But it's an insane number of tons of fuel per day. And of course, all the other ships in the flotilla use tons as well. So instead, wait in the main harbour. Wait in port. And you'll have smaller vessels out and about. And when they report seeing an enemy ship, they'll get you up on the phone or on the radio, and then you steam out full speed ahead and you intercept whatever ships you've found. And then once the battle's said and done, return back to base. Hopefully you've gotten there in time. Hopefully you've managed to sink 1 or 2 of the enemy in the process. So that is strike force. Patrol is literally, no, I send the whole lot out on patrol and they're going to just drive around looking for the enemy. I recommend having 1 or 2 little ships out on patrol for sure to see what's going on. I do not recommend setting up entire large flotillas out on patrol. If you're playing as somebody like the United States who has no shortage of oil whatsoever, you can pretty much set your ships to patrol all the time if you so wish. So what we're going to do is click Strike Force. Now, once again, we've got this no assigned region, so we're going to say, well, where do we want him to cover? So once again, we're going to right-click on the Eastern North Sea. That's going to cover the western element of Germany here. We want to cover this area here, what they call the Danish belts. And that also, as you can see there, covers the very northern element of Germany. And then, of course, the lower Baltic Sea, which is where Germany... There you are, sweetheart. This is where Germany trained its flotillas and U-boats and whatnot before it sent them into the big wide world, so to speak. So these are the three coastal areas that have coastline versus or up against Germany, which includes this area off to the side. So as you can see, it's flashing green, and the reason it's flashing green is you've got your naval commander, in this case Eric Raeder, and he's basically saying, okay, you've asked me to cover this entire area, and I'm confident that with the ships you've given me, I'm able to do just that. If we take another look at the composition editor, we'll just look at this first one here. We can see there are three types of ships in this particular flotilla, which is made up of 2 heavy cruisers. So these are the biggest, heaviest, most expensive ships in this particular flotilla. We've got 6 light cruisers, and we've got 4 destroyers. If I just cancel that and click on this composition here we've got 2 battleships and 8 destroyers. Now what I'm going to do, because I'm somebody that likes to balance out my flotillas a little bit, I actually want to give this flotilla a couple of light cruisers. So what I'm going to do is select here to add a new ship class. So we're going to click on the light cruiser option. And I'm going to click on the plus here to give them 2. Now if I press OK, these additional 2 light cruisers do not exist. It's just they're on the menu as and when they become available, put them into position. But if I come across to my existing flotilla, where I've already got 6 of these light cruisers in this particular flotilla, I'm actually going to knock this back to 4. And so now you've got 6 out of 4, which basically means you've got to send 2 of them back. So when we press OK, as soon as I unpause this game, you're going to have 2 light cruisers break off from this flotilla at Weser Ems, and they're going to roll up at Königsberg where they are required. So 31st of January, now that we've done this, let's go ahead and unpause the game. Make sure that you've copied along. You can see we've already lost the 2. There are now only 4. And if we take a look here, here we can see we've got the 2 light cruisers. Now you may think, hang on a minute, they're going through the land here. They're actually going through this little waterway here. Although it may appear like they're going through land. They could perhaps make that look a little better. But there's a little waterway here that these ships have actually passed through. And again, as we see the time ticking on here, 31st of January, these guys are actually pretty fast movers as far as it goes for ships. They're going to roll up here at Königsberg, and as soon as they do, if you take a look at what they call the Ostseeflotte, watch what happens to the numbers here right above my head once they roll up. You already know what's going to happen. There's 0 out of 2. Boom, 2 out of 2. So the navies have got what they need. Now you may say, okay, but clicking on this here, I want there to be more destroyers there now, degree. So I want there to be at least 8 destroyers in this flotilla. I'm going to increase to 8. Now, there's always a debate or an argument to be had between, you know, what's ideal. Some people say 8 destroyers per capital ship being either a heavy cruiser or a battleship. While I would think, yes, ideally that would be great, I just think it's a little bit too difficult to always have 8 destroyers. So I would certainly say a minimum of 4 destroyers per capital ship is a nice way to have it, and sprinkle it in with a few light cruisers You get one of the DLC where you actually assign different types of ships. You get to design the ships and assign them different roles. The most obvious being mine layers or minesweepers versus not the anti-submarine destroyers versus raiding types, whatever. Is you can obviously really go to town on the task force composition editor there, but absent of that DLC, light cruiser, heavy cruiser, certainly light cruiser and destroyers perform different tasks, and I like to always mix those two where I can. Okay, there we go. So now the next lot of destroyers that get produced, or certainly the next 4, will make their way over to Königsberg. Okay, so that's Navy over and done with. Let's now take a look at our options here. See, currently we've got 83 political power. Now, if we come over here to our decisions menu, something we haven't really looked at yet, we can see there's a number of things we can do, one of which is cancel MIFO bills. And you can see it's actually free to do this, whereas some of these decisions cost political power. Anti-democratic raids cost us 50 political power, which we can do because, of course, we've got 83, now 86. Improved worker conditions cost 100. Well, we can't do that because, again, we've only got 86. Do not cancel your MIFO bills, okay? What are your MIFO bills? This is basically giving Germany a helping hand because the economic conditions, pre-war were horrific in Germany. So enable this and just leave it enabled. Trust me when I say this, the UK or whoever it is on the Allies will cancel these on your behalf once you start getting aggressive. So basically, leave it going for as long as you can. When it comes to things like political actions, anti-democratic raids, anti-communist raids, personally, I suggest you don't need to worry about that. What I like to do is if I have a load of political power spare, at some point I just do press censorship. This basically has the effect, if you look here, I just realized I'm slightly covering that up, but you've got press censorship down there. But as you see there, that gives the following benefits. Fascism support plus 0.03 on a daily basis for a full year, for 360 days, right? Why it says actually 360, not 365, I don't know, but it's a year. So fascism supports absolutely 0.03 per day. You can see it also has a negative impact on democracy, communism, as well as people that are undecided or unaligned. So if you're whatever country you're playing as, whether it's Germany or any of the others, if you're democratic, generally speaking, you want to push for more democracy. If you're a communist like Russia, you want to be more fascist, you want to be more. And so by having a press censorship, what you're going to do, there are no negative effects of employing it other than it uses political power to do so. That's the only negative effects, but you do gain from these things. So we will definitely look at trying to implement that at some point. You will get shed loads of decisions that appear in this list as time evolves. Different DLCs, different countries, so on and so forth. So let's untick that. And what we're going to do now is increase the speed to full, which is where it is red. I'm going to press spacebar, and if you're following along, don't wait to press spacebar when I say, but instead, as soon as you get a notification come up, we'll press spacebar, and it should be more or less the same time as me. So I'm going to press spacebar here, and as soon as right, pop. So on 6th of February, okay. Italy moves to annex Sultanate of Oza, is that? I don't know. Rumours are swirling that the annexation of the Sultanate of da-da-da-da-da. In other words, Italy's up to something and this is what's happening. So we're going to say, oh dear, how sad. Never mind. But we're going to carry on. Pause. Sultanate of Oza submits to the Italian demands. Unsurprising, unfortunately. And again, if you want to read all through that, and it's basically historical narratives, right? Okay. And so, we know in World War II era, Italy excuse me, was doing its thing. And if we hover over this area, press F1 to come to the army mode, we can see here that we've got the country of Ethiopia, we've got Italy over here, we've got Italy over here, and if we zoom in, we can see here there's some sort of activity. We can't see what's going on, but we see there is combat, and if we listen out, they're definitely fighting. They're definitely fighting. Also, of course, got the huge areas of the UK all over the map, as well as France, obviously. UK, British Empire, France, you know, that France obviously controlled a huge part of the world, including over here, Indochina. Yeah. I think they were jealous when Germany decided to have a go. I could, of course, just be talking twaddle. Who knows? But it is what it is. So let's carry on unpausing then. Pause. Okay, so we don't have a message per se, but we've got a notification up at the top. So let's review what that notification is. Modify the officer core. What it's saying is we're able to select a theorist. Why is that? Well, if we click on it, theorist is this one over here. We require, as you see, 100 political power, and we've actually got 110, to assign various guys here. Now, actually, we require 150 for these two, and we require a whopping 200 to get Heinz Guderian, the Blitzkrieg guy. But let's take a look at what some of these things do. I'm not going to bore you by going over them all, but let's just say this guy, Ernst Udetz, dive bomber. Let's have a look. If we were to hire this guy, close air support, so our Stukas, our bombers, basically, they're going to gain an additional 10%. They're going to be 10% more effective. And an air doctrine cost is going to be reduced by 10. But let's just focus on the ground attack. Why would it be better? It's the same thing as before. You've got a better general or a better commander or a better air marshal or whatever it is in a position of power, and they can influence and develop tactics. They're going to come up with better ways of doing things. The problem with this whole theorist is we can only select one. So it's a case of, well, which is best? Now, that isn't to say you can't change. You can, but as you see, it's going to cost you 100 political power to every time, or 150 every time you want to make a change. So I think Heinz Guderian is a very good one to go for. Now, there's this Heisenberg guy who gives you an extra 15% bonus when it comes to researching nuclear stuff. So if you're trying to rush the nuclear bomb, as soon as that technology begins becoming available, sort of the early to mid 40s, or at least you can start progressing towards it at that point, definitely worth considering hiring this guy at the expense of all others to you know, 15% out of thousands of days is obviously hundreds of days, so definitely worth getting. I recommend, though, for various reasons, to save up so you can get Heinz Guderian, Blitzkrieg Theorist. Take a look at that. Armor technology max speed plus 10%, mobile warfare doctrine cost minus 15. But basically, the most important thing there are both of those two. Maximum speed for your armor stuff, that's hugely important, right? If your tank could go 10 kilometers an hour, hire this guy, they'll be able to go 11. Why? I don't know why. He's just figured out how to make him go a little bit quicker. Mobile warfare doctrine costs minus 15%. So we'll take a look at the warfare doctrines, but it's hugely important aspect of this game, no matter which country you're playing as. Definitely don't waste your political power one of these other guys, at least not early on. Okay, let's unpause. Pause. Okay, naval dockyards. I don't know if you remember an episode or two back, we were producing the subs here, and remember that we were saying every time they produce, they work on to the next one. We'll take a look at this. We've now got 5 dockyards available. We've got 10 in total. We're using 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so it's now a case of what do we want to do? Well, same as before. So I'm going to reduce the destroyers here to 1 because there were 2 queued up. Now just 1. And we're going to put all the dockyards there. So we had 1 already. There were 5 available. That makes 6. Now, once this destroyer finishes, I want them to work on this destroyer. But I don't just want 1, nor do I want 2. If I recall, we needed 4 destroyers to plug the gap with what we'd asked for. So I'm actually going to ask for 3. So 1 destroyer here plus 3 here makes 4. And if you remember, our flotilla that we were looking at had 4 destroyers already, and we asked them to have 8. So we need to produce another 4. So once this particular destroyer finishes, which is very soon, look at this, 3rd of March. So we're only talking about, 10 days, if that, because February's got fewer days, right? Once that completes, we want them all to get to work on this particular flotilla here. In fact, let's be even more efficient. One thing that we could say is, well, hang on a minute. You've got this heavy cruiser, the Deutschland class. It's ready on the, look at it, it's like 99% or something, but it's going to take another month. It's 23rd of March. It's not going to be finished until the 23rd. Sorry, it's 23rd of Feb. It's not going to be finished until the 23rd of March. But notice here, we can only ask for 5 naval yards to produce as opposed to 1. Let's reduce the destroyer back to just 1. Come here and let's say, okay, let's put 5 naval yards. Now take a look how long it's going to complete. 23rd of March, 9th of March, 5th of March, 2nd. And if we put 5 yards on it, it's going to be complete on the 1st. In other words, this thing is going to be all said and done in a few days' time. So what we want now is, upon that completion, we've still got a dockyard left. Let's move the Deutschland class to the top priority. Once that's complete, then everybody can get to work on this destroyer. And once that's complete, then everybody can get to work on getting the rest of these done. These 2 battleships, the Scharnhorst, as you see, they're a very small percentage complete. And while, I mean, look at this one, is not going to be completed until the 11th of October 1946, which is absolutely insane. We definitely want to get more dockyards producing that. If you look, if we get 2 yards, it's going to be 1941 August. If we get 3, it's actually going to complete December 39. Now, it'd be great if we can get these out by sort of before December. You know, if we could get February 39 would be perfect, right? Because, so we can have these, whether it's at the outbreak of war or very nearly, that's what we want. And again, we're talking this here, right? So this for now is our setup. Once these ships are all completed, we'll review. We definitely need more U-boats as well, so that's something we need to look at as well. So let's close this now we've done that. Spacebar. And this is how you'll be playing this game while you're basically waiting for war to unfold. Once war has begun, you will not be playing at redline speed, and if you do, you'll probably lose. Right, we've got a decision now to modify the government. We happen to be on the 4th of March. That's because we've got over 150 political power, which is what you need. So when it comes to modifying the government, we can basically change. So for example, limited conscription. Oh, well, we want to go to extensive conscription. So you can see that basically means more of the population is going to get asked to join the military. We've got volunteer only. We've got service by requirement. And again, these laws cost us 150 political power to change, and we can only move 1 at a time. Because we're not yet at war, we've got loads of people available by the current law. We'll leave limited conscription where it is. Certainly once things kick off, at some point we're going to want to change that. But the next one along is limited exports. Now, there are a lot of people who suggest when playing as Germany, you change the law from limited exports to free trade. Now, Take a look at all of those positive modifiers there. Construction speed plus 15%, research speed plus 10, factory output plus 15. These are all huge bonuses. So you may say, well, it comes at what trade-off? And the answer is, this is huge. Resources to market. Under our current limited export laws, 25% of everything that we pull out the ground is basically automatically sent away. Think of it kind of like as a weird... Well, it's sent away in trade, but in reality, it's more like an invisible tax in the game. Now, if we go for the free trade, that enables our stuff to build more quickly as we've been over lots of modifiers. But look at that, 80% of what we get out the ground basically disappears, which means we're going to run out of stuff quite quickly if 80%... Again, I wouldn't say run out as in... because stuff never runs out in terms of... If you've got a oil refinery there, it's going to carry on producing oil for the rest of the game. If you've got a steel mine, it's going to do the same thing, or a steel refinery, I guess. But whatever's going on. But if you're getting 30 pieces of steel out the ground, I say you don't get steel, but you get iron, you refine it into steel. But regardless, you get 30 pieces of steel, let's say, from this county. If you give 80% of that away and you need, let's just say, oh, well, I only need 15 pieces of steel. Well, yeah, if you're giving 25% away, that's fine. But if you're giving almost all of it away, that's not fine. That said, the advantages more than outweigh the deficits in the early stages of this game. And we are in the very early stages of it, early 36. So I absolutely recommend this one. So let's go with this law to begin with. We'll look at some of the other laws as things progress. But again, the main advantage being construction speed plus 15. We're going to be able to build more stuff 15% more quickly. Research speed 10, so all of those research things are going to take place much quickly. And factory output plus 15, dockyard output plus 15. So the same tanks, the same guns, the same boats are going to build much more quickly. Let's go with it. Are we sure it's going to cost 150? We've got 154. Okay. Now we're left with... Why did it go from 154 to 5 when it... I will never know. Mysteries, right? And you can also see we've almost completed the Rhineland. So look at that. 62 out of 70 days. Now, once that completes, which is a little over a week, you watch what happens to this red box. Let's unpause. Pause. Remilitarization of the Rhineland. It's German territory. And there we go. Focus completed Rhineland. Okay. Now look. That red line is gone, and if we wish, we can click on this guy, and we can march him in there, which is what we want. So what I'm going to do, this guy that we'd asked, hey, just vaguely defend this area, let's delete all of his orders. And what we're going to do is, with this guy selected, we're actually going to right-click on this bin, and then set OK, and that deletes all the orders that he was given, which was basically just cover this area. We're now going to press Z, our friend, and draw our Z key and draw here a front line. So let's just press Z. And he's going to draw the front line between Germany and France here. And that's not necessarily that we want to attack via this route. In fact, I would highly recommend against attacking through there. But we definitely want a front line there. So with that said, if we now unpause, he's going to... Well, that was far too fast. My mistake. I should have slowed time down. But basically... you can see there he's bringing the last guy into position there. And you can see he's fairly confident he's going to be able to hold the line as well. So there is that. And so I think with the end of that, we've got several icons here already to demanding our attention. That's going to be a great way to continue this series. So make sure you capture the next episode, if that's the right word. I think catch the next episode is probably the word I was looking for. So until then... Take care. Don't forget to save the game as we do. So we're going to save it as Germany Tut Part 4. Make sure you leave this video a like. Hugely important. And until then, take care. Ta-ra.